from the local station. This is Weather Authority Weekday.
Well, hey there, happy Friday. Yeah, we made it. I am meteorologist Michelle McCormick. Welcome to the Weather Authority Weekday Show. Happy to be with you and to give you a full look ahead, expanded forecast into your weekend and what you can expect. And I'll just tell you right now, expect some rain because that's what we have in our forecast over the next several days. And while we need the rain, it's unfortunate that we're getting it on a pretty busy weekend across our area, the very first weekend of December, the very last month of the year. Also coming up after a break, we're going to go through a really detailed forecast for you. But after that, we're going to take a quick break. And then after that, I'm going to show you the second part of my interview with Angela Enyedi from the National Weather Service. This time, we are talking about the Jacksonville climate and what we experienced from this summer through a very dry fall and what to look ahead to for winter 2025-26. All right, let's get right into our forecast here. I have the Morningstar Marina camera up here at Mayport through the waterways here heading out to the jetties and into the Atlantic. You can see the flag. It's blowing pretty decent. We have some really hazy conditions across the area, right? So it's kind of cloudy in some spots, but for the most part, it's really just kind of ugly out there. So I don't know why my clicker's not working because that's really frustrating and it's blinking at me. So maybe it's like not working, but I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna push this button for the most part. And here you have our temperature, 75 degrees right now. And that wind out of the southwest at 15, what this wind is doing is it's bringing in some really warm air because it's already 75 degrees. Look at this, it's hazy out here at the beach. Again, 75 degrees, that southwest wind at 15 as well. So for the most part, we are going to be staying around this mid to upper 80 degree temperature throughout the entire day. I'm gonna bring my block back over so I look a little taller. There we go, better. Is that better? Yeah. Yeah. Since my clicker doesn't want to work, it's blinking at me, Caitlin. All right, here we go. We can make this happen. So this is the International Airport, of course, very busy this time of year. But across the area, look at some of these temperatures. 77 degrees in McClenny, 70 in Lake City, 75 in Gainesville. But check out what's happening in Waycross, 58 degrees. So you can see that cold front line coming through our area. It's kind of stalling. It's bringing in our mostly cloudy conditions across the area. 68 degrees in St. Mary, 77 out in St. Augustine. So we're going to have a very warm day today compared to yesterday's. And here's a difference in the temperatures from this time yesterday to this time now. It's 13 degrees warmer at the airport, 14 degrees warmer in McClenny, almost 20 degrees warmer right now in Lake City, Columbia County, than it was this time yesterday. So we're feeling the warmth meeting up with the cold front that's coming through. And I'm going to show you a couple different models. So here's one Futurecast model showing the rain that's going to come through later on this afternoon. That one went by pretty quickly. It's going to have some scattered showers associated with it. I'm not very confident with this model because it's not updating as well as we'd like it to. So that's just one model. But then I wanted to show you this model. And you can see here, it's a little bit more accurate. So we have the winds coming in out of the southwest, bringing in the moisture out of the Gulf. The red arrows are really indicating that direction of the wind. But then watch what happens. Southeast Georgia is experiencing that colder air first. You can see the blue arrows indicating that cold air sinking in behind that line. And that line is a really good indicator of that cold front that's coming through our area. So heavy rains. Not expecting a lot of thunderstorm activity with this, but there could be because of the heat today rising and mixing with this cold front coming through. So we can't rule out a thunderstorm or two. You're going to want to tune into Richard this afternoon as he updates you as this storm gets a little bit closer into our neck of the woods. But then it kind of breaks apart at sunset. So sunset figure around 5:30, 5:25. We're going to have less heating of the day interacting with this system, and then we'll start to see some of those heavier rains and possible thunderstorms fall apart. But then as we go through overnight hours into tomorrow morning, looks like a relatively dry morning. So I know there's a Christmas parade in St. Augustine. We're going to talk a little bit about that. There's a Christmas market also, I think, in the Springfield area. So all your Saturday activities should be okay until Southeast Georgia really will start to be impacted by this. So we're going to talk a little bit about Southeast Georgia's impact, the wet weather and the heavy downpours that will happen maybe even potential flooding. You know, we've been super dry over the past several weeks, even a couple past months, October and November. Well, now we're going to see a lot of rain at one time. So these heavy rains could bring 2 to 4 inches over the next 2 days. But starting tomorrow at 3:15 on this one model, it really does show these heavy areas of downpours. So just keep that in mind for your Saturday, and most specifically north of I-10 into southeast Georgia. This is where the biggest impact could happen. And we'll be talking about it, of course, throughout the rest of today and into tomorrow morning when I'm on the morning show from 6 to 10 a.m. Then Saturday evening, we have some more heavy rains coming across. You can see on this one model right at I-75 through Alachua County going into Gainesville, heavier rains in our southern counties, which are spared most of Saturday, but going into the evening evening time, that's when we're going to see a little bit more activity. Now, Sunday, yeah, big football game happening on Sunday here at Everbank, and the Colts are in town. A lot of folks planning on going. It's the AFC South. Who's going to be in first place after this game? Both teams are 8-4. Well, yeah, look at this. 9:45, heavy rains with winds continuing to come in from southeast and from the southwest. Look at that. Oh, it looks so rainy on Sunday. I'm so sorry. But just keep in mind, you can't bring an umbrella into Everbank. So just make sure you have your ponchos and your raincoats and your hats all ready, packed to go in. All right, so rain totals over the next several days. This is where we'll see that chunk of rain really start to take effect. Now, 4 to 7 inches in St. Mary's, that can be a little bit exaggerated on this model, but the 2 to 4, it's pretty much realistic through here. And then 1/2 inch to 1 inch in our southern zones south of I-10. So this is just one over the next several days. And you can see after Sunday, these totals don't change. So the majority of our rainfall will be on Saturday and Sunday, and going into next week, we're not really looking at any additional rainfall. So for today, look at these warming temperatures for out the afternoon into the upper 70s. This is about 10 degrees warmer than we should be for this time of year, folks. So yeah, we're really feeling the heat in Northeast Florida. Southeast Georgia is pretty much right on track for where we should be for this time of year as that cold front pushes through there first, moving in from the north and from the west. And west of town, tapping on the door of 80 degrees through Gainesville, Stark, Lake Butler. So yeah, pretty warm day ahead here, even under these mostly cloudy skies. And then temperatures tonight dipping back into the mid to upper 50s, low 60s. All right, so this is that Christmas parade I was telling you about, St. Augustine. The streets will close at 8 o'clock, so you're going to want to be in place by 8 o'clock, have your chairs ready to go, your noisemakers. I don't think you're going to need a raincoat for this event in the morning, but it could be a little bit on the foggy side. And then the parade begins at 9 o'clock. Temperatures in the mid-60s should be quite pleasant for the Christmas parade in St. Augustine, so enjoy that. And then high temperatures on Saturday, 10 degrees cooler than we're experiencing today. So that cold front is going to bring us back down to where we should be for this time of year for our high temperatures on Saturday, except in our southern zones where we'll be in the lower 70s, mid 70s in some areas like Flagler County, for example, and maybe even Putnam County, as that cold front kind of continues to make its way from north to south. All right, Jags game, scattered showers. I showed you the model. It does look to be a little bit on the rainy side, 64 degrees at 1 o'clock Sunday. The Colts coming to town. Plan for a rainy day at the bank. All right, next 7 days shaping up like this. Now, the potential for light frost, again, returns to our forecast maybe Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday morning. So these show temperatures in the mid to upper 40s inland and in southeast Georgia. Keep in mind your temperatures will be a little bit on the cooler side, and that could help promote frosty conditions going into the beginning of next week. But for the weekend, we are going to have a pretty rainy weekend ahead, so plan ahead for that as well. All right, so that takes care of our expanded forecast for local weather and the weekend ahead. I'll keep you updated again at noon, so you'll want to tune in for that. But we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. My conversation with Angela Enyedi from the National Weather Service is coming up as we talk about the 2025 crazy roller coaster weather that we've had since this summer. Stick around. Angie, let's talk a little climate.
Yes, absolutely. So summer 2025 was hot. and actually tied as the second warmest summer on record for the Jacksonville area. And to define, how do we come up with that? What defines, what we see as a record warmth is we look at average temperatures. And average temperature is your daily high temperature with your daily low temperature together, divide by 2. That's your average temperature. So for us, that's a little behind the scenes math. But for us, Jacksonville had the second warmest summer on record with an average temperature of 83.4. That was tied with 2024. The summer of 2024 is the second warmest on record. And it falls just behind the hottest summer on record, which was 2010. And that average temperature was 83.5. So only a 0.1 degree of a difference between having. Yeah. So it was a hot summer.
And we didn't even have that many days at 100 this year.
Correct. But it was the number of days we had that were above 90 degrees. We didn't see a lot of, at least in Jacksonville, we look for those summertime thunderstorms to come and cool us off. And just the timing of those here where the records are kept at Jacksonville, that didn't happen as often for us in Jacksonville. So our summer this past year too was also on track to have the most 90-degree days on record here. However, we had a early season nor'easter develop where we have a period of onshore winds from the northeast. It's not a New England nor'easter. It's just locally called nor'easters when we have that onshore flow persist for a couple of days. So this nor'easter developed in late August into early September. And so with that, we had cooler onshore flow come in and kind of nix the near record number of days for our summer of being 90 or above. But it was still on track to be the most, but we didn't quite get there. In fact, a specific statistic here is 2025 had 113 days of above 90 degrees, and it was just behind 2011, which had 114 days. So we were close. One day. That nor'easter kicked in for us.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm glad you classified the nor'easter, the New England nor'easter. Oh, these aren't New England nor'easters. I'll tell you what, I live at the beach, and when it's raining sideways and the wind is blowing in from the northeast, you're definitely feeling it. And you can look to the west and you can see the Intracoastal Waterway and it's blue. I mean, blue skies. So, I mean, no joke. And those nor'easters just kept coming and coming and coming. In September, it was like every weekend, it seemed like for the first few weekends in September, we had these northeasterly winds coming on shore for, like 3 or 4 of them in September. But what that did, and we transition a little bit from the heat to the rain, we had an abundance of rain. It seemed like we were getting lots and lots of rain, and then nothing.
Correct. So the nor'easter phenomena, it can bring, as you said, basically a nor'easter is an area of low pressure that sits out offshore of the local Atlantic coast, either a little north offshore of Georgia or a little farther south offshore of Florida. But around those areas of low pressure, we have counterclockwise flow, and we can have an extended period of onshore winds, the east to northeast winds. And how these lows set up, whether they're close to the coast or if they're farther offshore, really dictates where that rainfall, those onshore bands can come. Sometimes if they're farther offshore, then that will just bring impacts and rainfall to the beaches. If the low's a little closer to the coast, the beaches will get rain, but it will also extend farther inland. And just the way things set up in September, we had some good bands coming on shore. The other thing about nor'easters is that these lows will typically form along stalled frontal boundaries. So if we go back to our previous conversation talking about how, we had this trough, this eastern U.S. trough set up, that was pushing cold fronts down through our area pretty early in the season. The first one happened in late August, early September, when we had that nor'easter set up. So nor'easters are associated with frontal boundaries that move through our area, and the fronts begin to stall either over Central Florida, South Florida. but they'll extend up offshore of our local coast. And that front serves as kind of the catalyst of where these lows, these nor'easters, can form. So we actually had, yes, we had several nor'easter events in September, but it's those fronts that we had an early introduction to. And by the time we got to October and November, the fronts, when they came down through our area, they were moisture starved. So we had a lot of what we call dry frontal passages. And that's what led us into a very dry November. In fact, the driest on record, because we had such limited moisture with these fronts. We called them dry frontal passages. So yes, we went from kind of a wet September, especially for more coastal areas with those nor'easters, to a transition to a drier October and then a very dry November because of these dry frontal passages.
Yeah, and I'm constantly reminding viewers and people who stop me on the street that, it might rain 2 inches in their backyard, but our records are kept at the Jacksonville International Airport.
Correct. That can be certainly misleading, right? So yeah, the official records here for the Jacksonville Airport. Originally, back in the day, we had a downtown office, the Weather Bureau, started back in 1871, and then the official climate location for the Jacksonville Airport moved up here in 1971. So yes, when we reference the historical climate record, we are talking initially downtown Jacksonville, but then more recent history, we bring it up to the international airport.
Yeah, and then I'm constantly saying, Alma, Georgia, also, they keep records up there, and Gainesville, sometimes in Craig, airfield. So I always like to classify, but yeah, I'm glad your rain gauge had 5 inches of rain, but at the airport it was a trace. So,
I appreciate you saying that. Climate is what we expect, but weather's what you get, right? So being able to, kind of, where are our actual climate records being kept? I appreciate you doing that because it can help clarify, well, we've been super soaked at the beaches, but you're telling me it's dry?
Yeah.
Well, let's look at where the observations are being taken.
Yeah, and the drought monitor pretty much showed that too. I mean, when we were looking at the drought monitor over the past several weeks, I mean, the extreme drought was clearly inland, right? We're in Swanee River Valley, Southeast Georgia area where you're saying, and then as we got closer to the beach, that was just kind of dry. But I appreciate that very much. So we finally had some rain this week, which was most welcome. I didn't hear too many people complaining about the impact of the rain on their day. But what are you looking at, as we close out 2025, Angie? What are your thoughts from the National Weather Service side of things? What can we expect? Cold weather, rainy weather, and I know you don't have your magic 8 ball in front of you, but what are we looking at for winter?
Well, the official winter outlook is for the southeast to be warmer and drier than average, and that's take into account a weak La Nina conditions transitioning to neutral conditions, and thankfully a little bit of rainfall. It's not enough to put a big dent in the inland drought, but we'll take what we can get at this point. But this upcoming weekend, the first weekend in December, is looking like a wetter weekend for us. And with that wetter weather, today's a cooler day. We'll have below normal temperatures with that rainfall coming in and the cloudier skies. So initially, the first part of December, we're looking like we're going to thankfully get a little bit of moisture and some cooler temperatures. Now, I say that, let's go back to November, and we already had a first freeze. So, we look at these climate outlooks of the warmer and drier than average, but the individual weather events will ultimately bring us our resultant weather. One of the things that our climate focal point and I looked at recently was comparing the number of freeze events that we can have during weak La Nina to neutral winters. And this signal it's all over the place. I mean, there's some winters where we're in a weak La Nina to neutral conditions and we have 20 plus freezes here at the airport and in inland areas. And there's some winters that barely got above 5. And it's during these kind of weaker La Nina events, or El Nino, the opposite, where the confidence in the prevailing forecasts for above average or below average precipitation or above average temperatures is lower than normal. So going into the winter, we can still have freeze events, even though the prevailing climate pattern message is saying, oh, it's above average temperatures. So we can still have freeze events. And when we look at the records, some winters have brought us a lot of freeze events during this weak La Nina.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that heads up. We'll get the gloves and hats ready also. But, back to November real quick. I mean, it was random because we had some tying record highs and even some record high that we broke in November. Are we done with the 80s?
We can't say that here. I mean, I remember being a kid here on Christmas Day and it was 80 plus. So, I think for many of us locals know that our winter temperature pattern is a roller coaster. I really enjoy my conversations with Angela Enyedi. She is so great at the National Weather Service here in Jacksonville. If there's any topics that you're ever interested in hearing about that maybe we can cover better or you're interested in learning more about, just reach out, send us an email. You can send it to weather@wjxt.com and we'll see what we can do to get you the information that you're looking for, and we'll put it right here on the Weather Authority Weekday Show now at 11 o'clock. All right, let's talk quickly one last time about the 7-day forecast. And oh my goodness, rainy weekend ahead. Much needed rain, right? But it is coming our way, and it's going to start as early as today for some folks. So warm air ahead of the cold front coming through, bringing in this wet weather, and the wet weather will continue. It'll be starting again late in the day in St. Augustine, or in southeast Georgia. Will start earlier in the day on Saturday. This is where we will have a bit of an impact weather day. So just keep in mind, could have heavy downpours at times, even the potential for some localized flooding in southeast Georgia while the heavy rains do fall, and we need the rain. So maybe 2 to 4 inches over the next several days. So the next 48 hours, we could see some good accumulation in these areas. And then Sunday, sadly, for the Jags game, it does look to be rather wet. Make sure you have everything packed and ready to go, and bring your tents for your tailgating. You can't bring umbrellas inside. But once all that passes out or passes through, we will have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday back to some cooler temperatures, opportunity for some patchy fog and frost into Tuesday and Wednesday morning. Caitlin, how are we doing on time?
We're great.
All right. Y'all, thanks so much for tuning in today to the Weather Authority Weekday Show. We'll see you back at noon. Tune in, and then Richard will have a full look at your forecast coming up again right here on News4JAX Plus around 3:30, and then again at the 4 o'clock. Have a great day and a great weekend.
See why every day more people are choosing News4JAX, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.